Hi everybody, welcome back for another video. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about troubleshooting, and I'm always preaching about this. I'm always talking about the importance of maintenance, the importance of keeping it lubed. But it's not just the lubing and making sure your O-rings are always in good shape. It's really about physically looking in and making sure that everything is in order. And one of the things that I've encountered with my TCP is screws that are backing out, and it's a very common problem. There are some screws in there that I've shown you in previous videos that I have Loctited so that they will stay screwed and hold the fork of this base, and those are ones that I had backing out on me. But in this particular video, I had a problem, and I'm going to show you the video in a second of my shooting. And the thing you have to realize about these is if you're not doing regular maintenance on it and it's shooting, it can be shooting absolutely fine, and you can get 3 or 4 shots into a mag, and then all of a sudden a leak happens, and it can happen to anybody, anytime. And so we should never get overly confident in these. And this is just an example for educational purposes for you to see my experience, what happened, and the troubleshooting process. And then let's come back and talk about it for a second. Okay, again, this time without the cotton ball. This is a control test with no cotton ball. And we're gonna chrono. .312, pretty good. .292. .275. .253. .239. I got a leak somewhere. Let me check it out. This is 9 turns in with the stock barrel. .219. It's pretty low. 198. So losing air. Seems to be some issue with my stock mag. Okay, so you saw an example of the type of leaking that I was having, and it just happened all of a sudden. And then after I put in a few mags and off-camera testing, some mags would surprisingly work a little better than others, but it was variable. And then you saw the results that I got. And I come to think that it was probably related to this. And now that I've opened it up, I can see that it's loose. I don't know if you can tell, but it's wobbling. It's actually so loose that I can hand unscrew it. So I'm going to open it up and check the O-ring and make sure everything's okay. And then we're going to put this thing back in. So there you can see, this is the Flask paintball O-ring that I put in a long time ago. It's a really, really good O-ring, if you can see there. Somehow this backed out. So I think that's an important thing to remember. I don't have this Loctited because there is an O-ring in there and it needs to be, lubed once in a while. But you do need to make sure this is tight on every service. So now I've lubed it, and when you put it back in, make sure you don't want to over tighten it. You want to go in, start screwing very easily, maybe back, just make sure it's in the groove, and then go down until you can't hand tighten it anymore. And then at that point, you want to just use a wrench and just give it a little brief turn, just enough to snug it. But you don't want to over tighten it. So this is just one of those things that is part of your regular maintenance. It needs to be checked. And it always does sit at this angle, so don't worry about that. All right, so there you have it. A lot of times your problems that you encounter with these less lethal launchers, you can diagnose the problem if it's an air leak either by looking at the back. Is the air coming out from here? Is the air coming out from here? Or is the air coming out from here? There's only 3 ways in which it can go. And in my particular case, everything seemed to be centered on my mags, and I was just starting to wonder, well, I thought this mag is bad. I tried another mag and I thought it worked better. And then I thought, well, it's definitely the mag. And then I tried my small mags and they worked pretty good. I went back to the big one. And so I spent a lot of time before I actually realized that, well, hey, wait a minute, it's probably this CO2 valve stem. Let me check it. And so it's just an example of how something so simple can be right in front of your eyes when you're doing your maintenance. And you can look at it and it looks like it's in, it looks like it's fine. But if you don't physically feel it and make sure it's not got some wobble in it and that it's not loose and it's not backing out, you may not be able to tell just visually. And that's what I did. I've done this enough times. I looked at it looked fine. But when I touched it, it wobbled just a little bit and then it just unscrewed. And so it was definitely backing out and it was getting ready to fall off. So don't let it get to that point. Check this every single time when you do your routine maintenance. I don't know how many shots I did on that since I put the upgraded O-ring. I couldn't even guess. But I think you have to check these things regularly. So what if it's not the valve stem O-ring and it's not related to the mag and you're not losing air there? I thought I needed to elaborate on that for just a minute. I mentioned that you can also look in the front and the rear, and that'll tell you a lot. If you go to charge this up and all of your air just goes out the front without pulling the trigger, then the problem is most likely with your heat core O-ring. It has been blown out, and that's a very common thing to look for. The very first thing you should check, but in reality, if you have in the Grimburg more square looking O-ring, the chances of that blowing out are so low and it's so rare that I think that's a very low probability thing. But if it's obviously the first thing to check if your air is blowing out. If you have air coming out the rear, the very first thing I would check, it's not usually related to this. This is a very nice seal, but you have a pressure relief valve in your TCP. And if you haven't deleted it completely, you need to check that and make sure it's screwed nice and tight, because you can lose all of your air out that way if it is backed out. And if it's not deleted, I recommend you delete it. And that'll solve a lot of issues with that. And then if it's not one of those two, you have to then get into your regulator and check your O-rings and make sure that those are all fine. And there are a few in there that can give you a problem. So diagnosing a leak is a step-by-step process, but there's only so many options with this TCP. There really is a way to figure it out. And it's just a matter of taking it apart, knowing how to look at point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, point 5. After that, you're going to find the problem and you're going to be able to fix it yourself. So don't fret if you're losing air with a TCP FSC. It is definitely fixable. You can do it. And if anybody has any questions or any troubles, send me a comment, send me an email. I'm happy to help. So stay tuned for more. I know maintenance is probably something that's troubleshooting, and maintenance is probably not the most exciting aspect of less lethal defense, but it is actually, if you're going to jump into less lethal defense, you have to jump all in on maintenance and make that a part of your life. You have to actually develop a desire to open these things up and work on them. So if you don't want to do that, less lethal might not be for you. You really have to think about that. Think about the degree of commitment you want to make. So just my advice for you today, Everybody take care. We'll see you in the next one.
Oh. Wow. Wow. So smart. Look at her. She flipped it. Oh. You can throw the ball here. See whether she runs over there. No, like this.